I died in the year when he hated me the most. Because I could no longer endure his hatred, I chose to end my life. When the crematorium handed my ashes to Mario, he gently patted the urn and showed the only smile he had that day. Too filthy, she should be crushed to bones and turned to ashes. He flipped his hand, and the urn clattered to the ground. Yes, he believed that I was the one who had killed his beloved goddess. He had hidden beside me for years, just for this moment. He stepped on my ashes as he left. Yet not long after, he came back crying, begging the crematorium to return me to him. After a year of Mario's torment, I finally died. I waited until he wasn't looking and secretly slit my wrists in the bathtub. The blood filled it completely, looking just like that day when I learned the reason he married me and grieved so deeply that I lost my child. Good riddance. Mario clapped his hands and laughed, yet his bright eyes turned bloodshot. He laughed, and then the tears began to fall. I thought, maybe he was remembering his first love, the one who had died so young. 6 years ago, she was killed in a car accident. Her heart was transplanted into my body. Mario always believed that the accident had been a setup, that I had murdered the woman he loved. So he deliberately approached me, only to torture me endlessly after we married. He even planned to make my entire family pay with their lives. He waited patiently, rising from a poor nobody to a social elite of City A. When he finally had enough power to stand against my family, he bared his fangs. Like a mad dog, he bit down on the Wu family and refused to let go. And today, it all ends, because I died on the very night he was about to strike. When Mario heard the news of my death, he was frighteningly calm. He merely told his assistant to send me to the crematorium immediately. When he saw me again, I was already reduced to a handful of ashes in a small box. Give my sister back to me. Just as he stepped out of the crematorium doors, my usually gentle elder brother punched Mario right in his handsome face. But he was quickly restrained by security, collapsing helplessly to the ground. Your sister's right here. Mario patted the urn, then stomped on my brother. So filthy, she deserves to have her bones crushed to dust. Then, with one motion, he overturned the palm-sized box. My ashes scattered into the wind like gray snow. I knew Mario hated me, but I never knew his hatred had become this sick. As my ashes drifted everywhere, even my soul couldn't stop crying. I had loved him sincerely for 2 years, yet this was how it ended. Mario lifted his expensive leather shoe off my brother and sneered again, his voice colder than ice. If you love her so much, then let the entire Wu family be buried with her. Even after my death, he still wouldn't stop destroying the Wu family. My brother sat on the ground, his face covered in tears and snot. You'll regret this. You'll regret this. I will never regret it, Mario replied. Mario stepped on my ashes as he left the crematorium. My brother, once so proud as the eldest son of the Wu family, broke down completely, crying like a child. I'm sorry. I whispered it in my heart 100 times, but the tears wouldn't stop. I could feel my ashes drifting away into the forests and mountains. A small trace fell into a stray dog's food bowl and ended up inside its stomach. Some scattered on the mountain streams and the trees, and the last bit clung to the hem of his coat and the sole of his shoe, following him back to the place we once lived together. Our wedding house was a villa halfway up the mountain. When we first got married, I thought he had chosen such a tranquil, beautiful place because he knew my health was poor and wanted me to recover in peace, until I gradually lost all contact with the outside world. Only then did I realize this was part of his plan all along. After all, I was the most pampered youngest daughter of the Wu family. Only by isolating me completely could Mario's revenge succeed, and his revenge would mean more that way. I followed behind Mario as he entered the villa. There were no servants in the house, everything had always been taken care of by me. When he changed his shoes, he paused for a moment, then sneered and switched quickly. Luciana, dying really suits you. I pouted, angry, stepping on his shadow as I followed behind him. That bastard Mario. Even after I'm dead, he still hates me so much. Mario opened the refrigerator and poured himself a drink. When he set the bottle down, his eyes caught sight of a sticky note on the fridge door. Hubby, I made your favorite cream puffs today. Don't forget to eat them, okay? The date on it was December 28th, the night before I died. Mario's gaze dimmed. He crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash. He didn't even glance at the cream puffs I made. I had shaped them like little hearts, just to please him. He used to love them so much, yet now he couldn't even care less. So it turns out, even his liking for my cooking had been another part of his deception. For some reason, after seeing that note, Mario fell silent. He lay on the sofa for a long time, staring blankly at the butterfly chandelier above him. If he could see supernatural things, he would have seen me sitting on one of those butterfly wings, watching him. We bought that chandelier before our wedding. I had loved it so much. Miraculously, he loved it too. Back then, I was delighted that we had finally shared the same taste, not knowing that the name of the woman he loved was Butterfly. After our marriage, when jealousy got the better of me, I once asked him about his first love. He was lying on the sofa, my head resting in the crook of his arm. He stared at the ceiling and said softly, "My first love turned into a butterfly and flew away." My heart clenched, and an even stronger desire to comfort him burst out of me. I kissed his eyes, over and over, trying to heal him. "I can be your butterfly, okay? My parents always said I'm the most cheerful one in our family. I'll definitely make you happy." He didn't say a word, just held me, trembling. His head rested against my chest, listening to my heartbeat. His hands clutched me so tightly it hurt, but I didn't ask him to let go, because I mistook his suppressed hatred for being moved by me. Once you fall in love, you lose the ability to tell right from wrong, so I deserved what came after. After staring blankly for about an hour, Mario finally decided what to do next. I didn't plan to follow him, but it seemed I could only stay within 1 meter of him. Now I was at the bathroom door, listening to the sound of running water. A minute later, I heard bottles and jars crash to the floor and suddenly felt a chill run through my soul. I darted through the door and saw Mario's eyes bloodshot red, facing the blood-soaked bathroom. His expression finally twisted with something between horror and despair. My death had caught everyone off guard. There had been no one else in the villa. If Mario's assistant hadn't returned to fetch some files, my death wouldn't have been discovered so quickly. From the moment I died to the moment I was reduced to ashes, only a dozen hours had passed. Everyone overlooked one thing: the bathroom where I died had never been cleaned. So now, the scene Mario faced looked exactly like a murder site. "Luciana!" he roared at the empty air. The sound was so loud it nearly sent my spirit scattering apart again. "What are you yelling for?" I muttered beside him. After my body went limp, I had sunk into the bathtub. It wasn't even that dirty outside. Couldn't he just clean it himself? But clearly, Mario couldn't hear me and had no intention of cleaning anything. He was shaking with rage, immediately pulling out his phone to call his assistant, not even noticing when the bathroom door swung open by itself. "Find me another house right now. I'm moving out tomorrow." When he hung up, he hurled the phone to the floor. It shattered instantly into pieces. I had never seen Mario so agitated before. What a close call. I patted my non-existent heartbeat, forcing myself to calm down. When Mario finally left, I knelt by the bathtub, torturing myself by stirring the bloodied water. It was my second time seeing such a scene. The first was the day I discovered Mario had married me purely for revenge. I had wandered around in a daze and accidentally slipped into the bathtub. Blood poured everywhere, and the tiny life I had just learned existed was gone in an instant. The second time was the day I killed myself. I lost consciousness quickly, letting the blood drain freely. Never did I think one day I would witness that horrific sight again with my own eyes. "Mario," I whispered, watching his fading silhouette. "If one day you learn that her death wasn't my fault, will you regret it?" That night, Mario and I, one living, one dead, spent an agonizing night in this house. The next morning, he woke up early, changed his clothes, and started walking toward the back mountain. I heard him calling his assistant, ordering him to clear out everything from the villa. He didn't want to see anything that once belonged to me. But honestly, I didn't believe Mario would ever really move out of this place, because his first love, the one who had turned into a butterfly and flown away, was buried right behind our villa. "Butterfly, she's gone." Mario crouched before the grave, his fingers gently brushing across the tombstone. On it was a photo of a sweet-faced young girl, smiling with bright, carefree joy. Unfortunately, her life had forever stopped at the age of 20. "I finally avenged you," he murmured in a trance, then stared blankly for a long, long time. I didn't know why, but Mario had been zoning out a lot lately. It was as if his entire soul had been drained away. Of course, I didn't think it had anything to do with me. I guessed it was just the emptiness that came after fulfilling his revenge. 4 years. He had lived only on hatred toward me. Now that I was dead, it was natural for him to feel a little hollow. Mario didn't leave the grave until the sun began to rise. When he returned, he didn't go back into the villa. Instead, he went straight to the garage, started a car, and drove away. When I saw the destination, a rundown apartment building on the outskirts of the city, I knew exactly what he was planning to do. Following his memory, he knocked on the door of Butterfly's family home. Unfortunately, no one answered. He tried a few more times, but when there was still no response, he grew impatient and knocked harder. This time, the noise brought a neighbor out. "What the hell are you?" The neighbor's voice stopped mid-sentence, their eyes widening in disbelief at the sight of the once poor boy. Now he looked like a successful businessman. So the neighbor swallowed their curse words. "What about the family that lived here?" Mario asked coldly. "Oh, them." The neighbor's face twisted with disdain, rolling their eyes. "They used the money their daughter earned with her life to enjoy themselves. That's what." Mario's brows furrowed slightly, as if the blunt vulgarity of the words was hard for him to digest. "Where did they go?" "No idea." "Why are you questioning me? Who even are you?" The neighbor looked him up and down, unimpressed. "I'm their daughter's boyfriend." "Oh." The neighbor's eyes lit up with gossip. "So you're the one that old man fooled like a puppet? What a pity." "Huh? That poor Butterfly girl, sold off by her own greedy parents." My heart skipped a beat, and I immediately turned to look at Mario's expression. His eyes went red with fury. After a long silence, he ground out one word through clenched teeth. "Sold?" On the drive back, Mario sped faster than ever before. His face was darker and colder than I had ever seen it. Back then, I only firmly believed that I wasn't the one who killed his first love. But as for how many hidden truths lay beneath it all, I truly had no idea. Mario sped all the way back and finally stopped right in front of my family's gate. The once glorious Wu family mansion now looked desolate and quiet. As Mario walked in, there wasn't even a single servant in sight. "Mario, how dare you come here again?" My brother grabbed his collar and swung his fist. "Get off me!" Mario's face looked like that of a demon. "I don't want to fight you today. Just tell me, how did Luciana get her heart?" "Ha ha ha, how did she get it?" My brother laughed like a madman, utterly broken. "Of course it came from your precious sweetheart's body." He threw another punch at Mario. The two men, eyes burning red, wrestled and fought violently. I stood aside helplessly, unable to stop them, unable to pull them apart. "Stop!" A familiar voice echoed in the air, and tears instantly welled up in my eyes. Father. He had aged so much. His voice was rough, weary, full of time's weight. He held up a surgery agreement from years ago and another document I had never seen before, a donation contract, and threw them at Mario's feet. Luciana's heart was donated through legal channels. I later paid the donor's family $10 million as a gesture of gratitude. All the paperwork is right here. What else do you want to ask? That's impossible. Mario's hands trembled as he flipped through the documents, his face growing paler and paler. I stood beside him, equally tense, not knowing how to face such a reversal. If I wasn't guilty, of course I should have been happy, but who could ever make up for the suffering I endured over the past year? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Mario's eyes went blank, muttering those words like he'd lost his mind. Then, right at that moment, his phone rang. Boss. His assistant's hesitant voice came through. We found Madam's prenatal report. My pregnancy, no one had known about it except me and the doctor. At that time, our relationship hadn't yet fallen apart. I still loved him desperately, with everything I had, wanting to keep a sense of romance. I hadn't told him immediately. I'd planned to surprise him on our first wedding anniversary. But that day, I sat alone by the cake for hours, waiting. He never came home. The storm outside was roaring. I couldn't reach him on the phone. My heart sank with fear and pain. I clutched my phone tightly, praying he was safe. It wasn't until midnight that he finally came back, reeking of alcohol. Butterfly. He lay flat on the sofa, mumbling her name as he stared fixedly at the butterfly chandelier on the ceiling. I thought he was just confused and went over to help him up. Honey, come to bed. You're not Butterfly. Of course I'm not. I whispered softly. I'm Luciana. But that one simple reply of mine seemed to hit his rawest nerve. He suddenly shoved me hard. I stumbled a few steps and fell onto the sofa. Honey, Mario had never been this rough before. I almost burst into tears. Half sober, he looked at me through the haze of alcohol. Moments later, he collapsed back onto the couch again, swallowing my sadness. I took off his jacket. As he murmured Butterfly, in his sleep, a photograph slipped out from the inner pocket. That was the first time I ever saw his first love. A girl with a bright, sweet smile, beautiful, lively, full of life. On the back of the photo was a line written in childish handwriting. Mario and Butterfly will be happy forever. In that instant, it felt like lightning struck me. So that's why Mario loved butterflies. Why even when drunk, he couldn't stop whispering that word. Because the woman he loved was named Butterfly. I didn't tell anyone what happened that night. The next day, I secretly hired a private investigator to look into everything. When I saw that the girl named Butterfly had died on the exact same day as our wedding anniversary, I finally understood what it felt like to fall into an icy abyss. Her entire life was summarized on just a few thin sheets of paper in my hands, and her heart was beating inside my chest. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I lay across the table, sobbing until my heart felt like it would tear apart. In that moment, I finally understood why Mario had married me. When I fainted into the bathtub that night, I didn't even notice the blood flowing endlessly from me. By the time I called for help, he had already left me forever. When I dragged my weak body back home, I saw Mario sitting leisurely on the sofa, holding the very documents I had uncovered, the ones about his beloved woman. From that night on, Mario dropped all pretenses. He began cursing me viciously, locking me inside the villa, cutting me off from everyone. He confiscated my phone, and whenever my father or brother called, I was forced to answer under his watchful eyes. He said I had to atone for my sins, because I had taken the life of the woman he loved most. Without me realizing it, his hatred had grown so deep that he wished I'd die and not even leave a grave behind. And later, he made that wish come true. But why? Why? Even after that, couldn't he find peace? Now, holding my prenatal report, Mario's whole body was trembling. It said, 7 weeks pregnant. The fetus was no bigger than a peanut sprout, barely visible on the dark ultrasound image. That was my child. I could feel his tiny heartbeat, but Mario couldn't. So why was he hurting too? Why did his tears, big as pearls, fall onto the paper, blurring the last image of our child? Go, find the Liu couple. Mario's voice was cold and sharp as a knife as he gave the order to his assistant. Maybe he still couldn't accept that the truth contradicted everything he believed in. He had to dig it up, to the very bottom. I called that behavior self-inflicted pain. One wound was already unbearable, and yet he wanted to reopen it. Hear the truth a second time. But I was dead already. Would clearing my name now change anything? I sat beside him, sighing to myself. If only he had realized the truth sooner, I wouldn't have loved him, and I wouldn't have died. But I knew, between Mario and me lay a puzzle no one could ever solve. The only answer left for us was destruction. The Liu couple hadn't gone far. They had bought a villa in another city and were now living the lavish life of newly rich people. When Mario showed up at their door, they were so terrified they could hardly breathe. 2 years ago, when Butterfly's heart was donated, Mario said through clenched teeth, "I want an explanation from you." The Liu couple's faces darkened. Clearly, they knew Mario must have learned something. She was just a girl. Being able to contribute to her family was already her honor. Crash! A chair smashed into Butterfly's father. Mario went berserk, hurling things at him like a man possessed. "She was your daughter. Your daughter." I stood off to the side, watching coldly. Mario, born poor himself but as a man, could never understand that in some people's eyes, a daughter is worth less than a few million yuan. Mario completely wrecked the Liu family's house. Under threats and pressure, they finally confessed everything that had happened years ago. The Liu family had been poor, with 1 daughter and 1 son, The two children were close in age, both still in school. One day, the couple overheard a doctor at the hospital worrying over my condition. That's when the plan took shape. They staged Butterfly's car accident, and through a middleman, donated her heart to me, in exchange for the $10 million my father paid as compensation. When the truth finally came to light, Mario returned to the villa halfway up the mountain, utterly exhausted. This time, his calmness was gone. The house was almost completely empty now. Every trace of my existence erased. He lay on the sofa, staring up at the ceiling. Only the butterfly chandelier remained, the sole reminder of our past. After learning the truth, there was actually a brief period when Mario and I loved and hated each other at the same time. He would curse me through gritted teeth, then comfort me when I was hurt. I could never understand what went on inside his mind, so I treaded carefully, broken and fearful, continuing our twisted marriage. And now, I can feel my very being fading away. Maybe it was my obsession that kept me here, but now that I've been vindicated, with no regrets left, I suppose I no longer have a reason to exist. Tomorrow will be the 7th day after my death. I hope tonight will be the last night I stay by his side. That final night, it was as if nothing happened. Mario went to take his usual shower, while I sat nearby, tending to the potted flower I had loved most when I was alive. Luciana. I suddenly heard him call my name. My body froze for a second. When no second call followed, I exhaled in relief. Mario had forgotten to bring his clothes. In the past, when he called, I would always bring them to him, and reply sweetly, "Coming, honey." Now, the only response was the empty air. I didn't open the door, just stood there gloomily outside. I knew him calling my name was nothing more than withdrawal symptoms. When someone gets used to another person's presence for too long, losing them all of a sudden feels unbearable. The name that slips from his mouth, it's nothing but a symbol. He doesn't actually want to see me. Once I figured that out, I just kept tending to my flowers and plants. If Mario were to come out right now and saw the flowers trembling with no wind, he'd probably think the place was haunted. That would be fine, I thought. At least then, I could scare him a little. But even after an hour, he still hadn't come out. I began to worry. After holding back for a long while, I finally pushed the door open. He was lying in the bathtub with his eyes closed, looking as if he were asleep, or perhaps dead. I stood there, emotions in turmoil, wondering whether to watch or call the police. But then he suddenly opened his eyes. "Who's there?" he shouted toward the door. Taking a bath in a house where someone had died, and having the bathroom door open by itself, it must have looked straight out of a horror movie. But Mario didn't look afraid at all. In fact, he called my name. I stood awkwardly to the side, silently thankful he couldn't see me. Then my gaze drifted, and I noticed what he was holding in his hand, the hair tie I had left in the bathroom before I died. The mountain wind was strong that night. A sudden gust blew through the room, sending a chill so sharp even I, a ghost, felt my scalp prickle. Mario seemed to come back to his senses. He didn't call again. He just quietly put on his bathrobe and went back to the bedroom. By habit, Mario always heated up a cup of milk before bed. It had always been me doing it for him. He was already lying down. But when it passed the usual time and no warm milk came, he grew impatient, throwing off the blanket and stomping into the kitchen with clattering noise. Then he came back holding a cup of pale yellow milk. "Mario, you fool, even milk. You managed to burn it." But as soon as I thought that, sadness washed over me. The first time I heated milk, I burned it too. Mario hadn't minded at all. He drank every drop, smiling. He even said, "It tastes like caramel." I grinned from ear to ear, and we shared a caramel-flavored kiss, promising each other a lifetime of happiness. But those memories are too painful now. I silently left the room. A few minutes later, a sharp shattering sound made me rush back in. In those few moments I was gone. Mario had lost his temper again. The cup of milk was splattered all over the cashmere carpet, and the glass had rolled under the bed. Such a bad temper, I muttered to myself. Mario stayed still for a long time before his breathing finally steadied. Then, almost solemnly, he crouched down, his elegant fingers groping along the floor, searching for the cup. But instead of finding the glass, He touched a rectangular box. My heart leapt into my throat. No! I pulled at his hand over and over, but it was useless. Don't look! Let my secret stay a secret forever, I shouted, but he couldn't hear me. When he pulled that tattered box out from under the bed, I knew I was done for. Mario frowned as he opened it. The first thing he took out was a tiny half-knitted piece of clothing. We'd never had a pet, so it could only have been for the child I never got to bring into this world. When I first found out I was pregnant, I was so excited. I bought yarn and followed tutorials online, learning how to knit. It was uneven and full of mistakes, but I was happy. I even knitted a small blue butterfly on it. I thought Mario would love it, too. But less than a month later, that dream was shattered. Mario already knew about my pregnancy now, but his reaction wasn't as strong as I imagined. He just clenched that little piece of clothing in his hand, when we were still pretending to be a loving couple. He had once told me he looked forward to the day our love bore fruit. I didn't know what he felt seeing it now. I watched him nervously, waiting for his response, but he didn't show much. He just quietly loosened his grip, folded the cloth neatly, and set it aside. Then he reached deeper into the box, pulling out several old basketball game tickets. Each one had his photo printed on it. He froze, taking them out one by one, studying each carefully. Different dates. I hadn't missed a single game he'd played. It was something I had never told him. Back in college, I had watched him play many times. He wore a white and purple jersey with the number 7. He was the tallest, handsomest player on the court. I'd had the biggest crush on him then, so when we met again years later, it was easy for me to fall for him all over again. Idiot. Mario sneered, tossing the ticket stubs aside. I admit, I really was an idiot. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been fooled by him for so long. But Mario wasn't any smarter. Was he? What did he call this? Digging through my hidden affection piece by piece like some brilliant detective? He kept rummaging until he found a letter. The sneer on his face vanished instantly, and my heart shot straight into my throat. It was a pink envelope, a letter I had written to him over 10 years ago, but never sent. Holding his breath, Mario tore it open, his hands trembling uncontrollably. I think he remembered, because he always hated the color pink, and I had deliberately chosen that color, just to go against his tastes. Together, we looked at the words written by my teenage self. Mario probably never knew. I had noticed him since middle school. Back then, I was a spoiled, chubby girl, nothing remarkable. He, though poor, was brilliant. His grades were excellent, and his good looks drew everyone's attention. Teenagers never cared about status or background, so I was just one among the many girls who liked him. I had secretly loved him for 3 years. Finally, at graduation, I gathered all my courage and stopped him after school. I handed him that pink letter, asking him to think about me. He simply gave a faint laugh and told me to go away. I stubbornly insisted, forcing the letter into his hand. He frowned, took it, then tossed it straight into the trash can. As he walked away without a second glance, I ran after him, just in time to see another girl grab his hand. So he already had a girlfriend back then. All the courage I had painstakingly gathered vanished completely in that moment. I later dug that love letter out of the trash myself. Not long after, I suffered from a heart condition. I almost died, and at the age of 20, I received the heart of his first love. And with it, a new life. A love letter from years ago wasn't worth much anymore, just a relic of youthful regret. Mario's hands trembled as he sealed it back in the envelope, pretending as if he had never seen it. I was filled with regret. If I'd known, I would have burned everything before I died. Why had I left behind something so humiliating? Even now, even after seeing all this, he showed little reaction, which only made me feel more like a fool. I left the room awkwardly and curled up on the sofa. That night, Mario didn't sleep either. At midnight, he opened the door, grabbed the trench coat he'd worn earlier that day, and left. I had no choice but to follow him again, even in the middle of the night. It wasn't until we were in the car that I realized he was heading to meet some friends for drinks. Mario, haven't seen you in ages. His friend teased the moment we entered the private room. Back when we were married, I used to hate him going to these kinds of places. So every time he did, I'd get upset and demand he come home. Because of that, his friends never liked me much. Mario didn't reply. He just picked up a glass of liquor and downed it in one go, earning a chorus of cheers. Damn, what? Your wife's not keeping you on a leash tonight? They probably hadn't heard about my death yet, so they joked around without restraint. I watched Mario quietly from the shadows. He looked calm, almost too calm, setting the glass down, even managing a faint smile. Don't bring her up, he said casually. She's still mad at me, I haven't coaxed her yet to lie so smoothly, without a flicker of emotion. Now I finally understood how he'd managed to climb so far, so fast in his career. He could have easily said, "She's gone, don't mention her again." That one sentence would have spared him from their teasing, but he didn't say it, and because of that, his friends kept pressing, until the mood grew uncomfortably tense. Your wife might be strict, but she really loves you, man. One of them said with a grin, take my advice, couples fight. Sure, but it's all pillow talk in the end. Go home, apologize, make up, and things will be back to normal. Yeah, she won't listen. How could she not? The friends started to retort, but stopped cold when he saw Mario's expression. Mario didn't say another word after that, and his friend didn't dare to ask more. They sat there drinking in silence, until a tipsy man stumbled in. Hey, Mr. Mario. Sir, your wife ordered a custom ring from my wife's jewelry shop ages ago. It's been ready for a while, but she never came to pick it up, and we haven't been able to reach her, so I figured I'd just bring it to you myself. He placed a small golden velvet box in front of Mario. Mario squinted, trying to focus through his drunken haze. Then, with an irritated gesture, opened the box. Inside was a pair of exquisite diamond rings, their patterns shaped like butterfly wings. I had designed them myself. To see them again after death, perhaps that was my one stroke of luck. Our original wedding rings had been thrown away in one of our fights, and we'd never replaced them. So later, I designed a new pair myself. I never imagined the first time he'd see them in person would be under such circumstances. The two rings shimmered under the colorful lights of the bar, and I couldn't help but reach out to touch them, but my fingers passed right through. Mr. Mario, are you all right? Someone asked cautiously. Mario suddenly stood up and kicked the table hard, sending bottles and glasses clattering. Ignoring everyone's shouts, he stormed out of the room. Back at the villa, he started rummaging through drawers and cabinets. I sat beside him, watching in silence for 15 minutes. Not that there was much to rummage through. The place had already been cleared out. Where's everything in the cabinet? Mario's voice thundered through the house at 3 in the morning, calling his assistant. The poor man, still half asleep, stammered. Boss, you told us to empty the place. Remember? Just that one line. And Mario fell silent again. The assistant had come confused and left even more confused. Mario collapsed onto the floor, staring blankly at the two diamond rings. No way. Luciana, even dead, you're still haunting me. He blamed me, again. I was furious, but my anger faded as soon as I saw how lost and broken he looked. What was he even looking for? I wanted to ask, but I couldn't, so I just sat there with him in silence. He seemed possessed, his gaze burning holes through those two rings. Then suddenly, as if remembering something, he bolted toward the kitchen. The refrigerator hadn't been emptied yet. In the very back corner sat the heart-shaped cream puffs I'd made for him. Stale, the cream souring, their shape long since collapsed. But Mario didn't notice. He stuffed them into his mouth, bite after desperate bite, until he couldn't take another. Then he rushed to the sink and vomited them all out. I stood there, stunned beyond words. Then I heard him roar my name, his voice raw, cracked with rage and despair. Luciana, you're not allowed to die. Never had I imagined that the brain-dead tragic love stories I used to read online could ever become real. In the middle of the night, Mario drove to a garbage dump, a billionaire CEO digging through trash like a beggar, searching alongside his subordinates. He said he was looking for 2 rings, 3-carat diamonds, with our names engraved on the sides. According to the description, they were our wedding rings. We had thrown them into the pond near the gate after one of our fights. Apparently, he had later fished them out and kept them. Boss, found them. One of the workers shouted like he'd found treasure, holding the rings out to Mario. Mario's hands trembled violently as he took them. I clenched my teeth and blew a small breath. He lost his grip, and one of the rings rolled straight into the drain. No! He went mad, forcing his hand into the grate, trying to pull it back out. I stood frozen, completely speechless. I'm already dead, so what's with his fake devotion? That night, news of Mario's rampage at the junkyard spread everywhere, but he didn't care at all. Holding that ring, he drifted into sleep. At that time, there were less than 12 hours left before I would completely leave this world. The next morning at 9 o'clock, when the funeral home had just opened, Mario appeared at the door, with his long legs. He strode straight toward the director who was unlocking the entrance. "Tell her I've forgiven her," he said. The director looked utterly confused, but professionalism kept him from showing this guy's crazy face, and he forced a polite smile instead. Who are you referring to, sir? Luciana. Where is she?" He grabbed the director by the collar. Maybe because the whole scattering the ashes incident had been so shocking, the director remembered that name very well. Ms. Wu was cremated on the 29th of last month. "Sir, I already handed you the ashes myself." "Impossible. She's not dead." Mario's eyes were bloodshot, demanding the funeral home give me back. I stood to the side, watching the whole thing, amused. In just a few more hours, even my soul would vanish, yet he was still begging them to give me back. The farce ended only after the security staff intervened. Then Mario began to wander aimlessly again. In the end, he wandered all the way back home. I couldn't imagine what he was feeling now, or why he believed I hadn't died. All I felt was that I was growing lighter and lighter. So light that a single gust of wind could blow me away. Mario paced around the house restlessly, calling my name in every corner. When he got no response, he started smashing things, first one, then another, until there was nothing left to break. Then it was as if he suddenly woke up from a dream. He called his assistant and made a request so absurd I almost cursed him out loud. Otherwise, why would he ask his assistant to find him a reliable Taoist priest as fast as possible? The person arrived quickly. They said this Taoist priest was truly powerful, versed in the ways of yin and yang, able even to communicate with the dead. As soon as he entered, he waved his horsetail whisk around Mario, mumbling something. Funny thing was, I was standing right beside him, and he didn't see me at all. What kind of Taoist priest was this supposed to be? "This young man," the old priest said solemnly, "there's a departed soul accompanying you." Mario's expression darkened. I froze where I stood, suddenly nervous. However, the old priest continued, "She doesn't wish to see you. There's nothing this old man can do." Heh, the old geezer actually understood me. Why doesn't she want to see me? She still has unfulfilled wishes. With just a few exchanges, the old priest laid my thoughts bare. So precisely that I almost suspected he was an undercover agent sent by my brother. Mario said nothing more. Only after the old Taoist priest left did he finally instruct his assistant to restore all of the Wu family's properties. For me, this was truly an unexpected surprise. If there's anyone I owed in this life, it would be my family. Now that my final wish has been fulfilled, I can finally leave in peace. There's less than an hour left. I've completed every single one of my unfinished wishes. By then, I should be able to disappear, right? To leave this world, if I'm lucky. Maybe I'll be reborn in another life. A brand new start. I look forward to that day, and I hope I'll never again meet someone like Mario. This time, death feels much easier to accept than the last. I can even smile as I say goodbye to every little flower and blade of grass. Mario had just finished arguing with my brother over the phone. They fought bitterly, but at least everything was settled. My brother demanded that I be buried in the Wu family's ancestral tomb. Mario sneered, saying, "Dream on, she was mine even in death." I let them quarrel as much as they wanted, because by then I had already been scattered among the mountains and forests. No matter how capable they were, neither of them could gather my ashes grain by grain again. It didn't matter where I was buried. What mattered was that I was finally free. I sat happily on the couch, legs crossed, quietly waiting for my second death. I even lay across the table sipping tea, completely unaware that Mario's confused gaze had turned into one of pure shock. I toyed with the little teapot and was about to squeeze it when, suddenly, someone grabbed my hand. "Luciana!" I turned my head in astonishment. My hand had form. It was visible. I stared at myself in disbelief. And at Mario, who was clutching my hand tightly. That Taoist priest really did have some skill after all. Just as my final wish was fulfilled, Mario actually saw me. He went insane, pulling me into his arms so tightly it felt like he wanted to fuse me into his body. "Luciana, you're back. Don't go. Please don't go, okay?" Even though I had already suspected his feelings for me had changed, when the word love slipped from his lips, I was still stunned for a long while. "You dare say you love me?" I pushed him away. "But I don't love you anymore." Mario froze, his bright eyes filled with tears. So, he could cry too. And when he cried, he looked just like me, eyes brimming like a broken dam, tears flooding endlessly down his cheeks. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. And, as expected, it would also be the last. "I'm already dead," I reminded him coldly. "No, you're not. You came back." He refused to wake up from his obsession, clutching my hand as he wept bitterly before me. He said he loved me, that he never wanted me dead. He said he'd wanted revenge on my whole family, but he hadn't expected things to spiral this far between us. He said he'd realized, far too late, that he had fallen for me long ago. He'd just been too afraid to admit it. Love and hate are separated by only a single glance. Once the hatred burns out, what remains is endless, boundless love. I simply let him hold me, silent and motionless. Mario cried for a long, long time. By then, there were less than 2 minutes before I would disappear completely. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out the custom ring I had designed, his tears glimmering as he pleaded. "The ring. I got it. Let me put it on you, please?" Faced with his trembling voice, his weakness, I found myself unable to ignore him. After a few seconds of thought, I smiled gently and agreed. "All right." I stretched out my hand, offering him my softest, kindest smile. Mario sniffled, pressing a tender kiss on my hand before moving again. His fingers trembled as he slid the ring onto mine, just a little more, and it would have reached the base of my finger. But my body could no longer hold on. "Goodbye, Mario," I whispered in his ear. "No." He lunged forward in desperation, but I was already smiling as I dissolved into nothingness before his eyes. The ring slipped from his grasp, glinting as it fell to the floor. "Luciana!" Mario's cry tore through the mountains. Raw and broken, gone was the proud, untouchable man he used to be. He staggered forward, reckless and wild. Even the cliff's edge couldn't stop him. Thankfully, his bodyguards acted fast enough to prevent another tragedy. I knew then that he would never forget me. Not ever. Though that didn't matter anymore. All I wished was for him to live on, to carry his guilt and treat my family kindly. I faded away completely, following the wind, the rivers, the rain, drifting across the world, free at last. From that moment on, wherever I went, I left a trace of myself behind. When we were in love, I once told him I wanted to travel the world. I never thought I'd only manage to do it after death. In my final moment, I heard his voice again, saying he loved me. I heard it, but I didn't answer. I only smiled, turning into a soft breeze. That breeze slipped between Mario's fingers. My final farewell to him. "Don't die, please." "I love you," he murmured like a madman at the edge of the cliff. Turns out, this was the year he loved me the most. Unfortunately, I was already dead. Story 2. Chapter 1. On the day of delivery, I witnessed my colleague swapping my daughter with hers. I remained silent and quietly switched the 2 babies back. 18 years later, my colleague showed up at my home arrogantly, claiming her rights. "Your daughter Helen is actually my biological daughter. The hospital made a mistake back then." I threw a paternity test right in front of her. Dragons give birth to dragons. Phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. You think you can take my daughter? Keep dreaming. On the day the college entrance exam results were released, my daughter Helen scored 631, and she's an arts student, which means this score is more than enough to get her into the nation's top art college. Relatives and friends came by to congratulate us. Nicole, my colleague, also came by, bringing a box of milk. Seeing Nicole, Helen warmly greeted her godmother, but to everyone's surprise, Nicole grabbed Helen's hand, tears welling in her eyes, and said, "Helen, I'm not your godmother. I'm your real mother. You are my flesh and blood. Come, let's go home." Upon hearing this, the relatives in the house were taken aback. Some whispered, "Is this Nicole out of her mind? Now that Helen's achieved something, she wants to snatch her away?" Exactly. Her own daughter died tragically, so now she wants to take someone else's? Nicole, still clutching Helen's hand, walked up to me with an arrogant attitude. "Diana, I'm going to tell you the truth today. The hospital switched our daughters back then. Helen is my real daughter. As for your daughter, she died in the countryside." I feigned surprise. This can't be true." Nicole sneered, her face full of arrogance. "Diana, don't think just because you're prettier and married better that you'll be lucky forever. You raised my daughter for 18 years, but your own child had a short life. In any case, I'm taking Helen away today." I raised an eyebrow lightly and said, "Nicole, you're claiming Helen is your daughter. Do you have any proof? A paternity test? If you don't, I have one right here." As I spoke, I placed a paternity test from 18 years ago onto Nicole. It clearly shows that Helen and I have a 98% biological match. Helen is my real daughter. Nicole looked at the paternity test, her expression dismissive. She tore the report into pieces. "This must be fake. Diana, you can't fool me. You think you can make up some fake report and separate me from Helen?" I responded, "If you don't believe it, you can always go to the hospital and do another test. But I'm not paying for it. Doing a paternity test costs 3,000 yuan. That amount is less than what my daughter spends on pocket money in a week." However, Nicole has been struggling financially these past 2 years. Her husband got into trouble a few years ago and just got out earlier this year. That man has no job and spends his days drinking heavily at home. Nicole was laid off from her job a couple of years ago and now makes a living by selling fried dough sticks at a street stall. 3,000 yuan would be enough to cover their family's food expenses for 2 months. Humph. It's just money, isn't it? I'll pay for it. Chapter 2. Nicole was certain that Helen was her biological daughter, and she arrogantly mocked me. "Diana. Oh, Diana. I truly pity you now. You've been so clever all your life. Yet you ended up raising my daughter for 18 years in vain. Once the paternity test results are out, Helen will return to her true family, and also, your family's company and assets will naturally belong to my Helen." As she spoke, Nicole grabbed Helen, intending to go to the hospital. I let her make a scene. In the hospital hallway, my husband Luis came rushing down from the elevator, sprinting towards me. "Diana, what on earth is going on?" At that moment, I smiled. Those who are shameless will always get what they deserve. Some people are rushing headlong into being humiliated. How could I not indulge her? The lights in the hospital hallway flickered on and off, and my thoughts drifted far and near. Everything began 18 years ago. Nicole and I were university classmates, and after graduating, we joined the same company. Later, I married the company's boss, Luis. She married her first love, a petty thug named Oliver. Coincidentally, we even got pregnant around the same time. When we gave birth, it was also at the same maternity hospital. I fought for my life, laboring for a whole day and night before giving birth to my daughter, Helen. But later that night, around 1 a.m., my right eyelid kept twitching, and I felt an uneasy sense of panic. I forced myself up and went to the nursery to check on my baby. To my surprise, I discovered something shocking. Nicole had snuck into the nursery and swapped her daughter with mine. I took out my phone and silently recorded everything. After Nicole left, I entered the nursery and switched the babies back. I didn't say a word about it. I wanted to see what Nicole's real intentions were. After we returned home from the hospital, Nicole frequently visited my home. One day she brought a free-range chicken. The next day, a box of crabs. She held my hand and earnestly said, "Diana, we were university classmates, and we're good friends now. You've married so well, and your daughter is so chubby and cute. I just adore Helen the moment I see her. How about I become her godmother?" When Nicole held Helen, she was so cautious, her eyes filled with gentle affection. But when it came to her own daughter, Nicole wouldn't even breastfeed her. Nicole's daughter, Roma, never had a single drop of her mother's milk from the start. Nicole said, "That little brat I gave birth to is destined for a short life. She wants to drink breast milk? Ha! Even feeding her some millet porridge is more than enough." Nicole laughed wickedly again. "I'm not breastfeeding her. If a woman breastfeeds, her chest will flatten, and then men won't be interested. My Oliver said he likes my full big papayas. Someday, I'll have to give him a son too." Hearing that, I intentionally said, "Then maybe I shouldn't breastfeed my baby either? After all, Luis is the boss, and I have to think about my figure too." Nicole, however, was immediately scared, her lips turning pale, and she shook her head repeatedly. "Diana, how could Helen be the same as my little brat? Your Helen is a golden phoenix. Mine is a born lowlife. Helen must drink breast milk. It's nutritious. Besides, Luis has money. If you want to maintain yourself, you can find plenty of ways to do it." Nicole never called Roma her daughter, only referred to her as a lowlife. Roma never tasted a single drop of breast milk. At 3 months old, she weighed only 6 pounds, scrawny like a little chick. If Roma made even a bit of noise, Nicole would hit her, pinching her hard on her inner thigh. Nicole always bathed Roma in cold water. When the child had a high fever, Nicole never took her to the hospital. She would prick Roma with needles at home, and within a couple of days, Roma ended up with pneumonia. Several times, I saw Nicole abusing Roma like this, and I wanted to confront her directly. Even if I hated Nicole, the child was innocent. But every time I brought up Roma, Nicole would roll her eyes and grin wickedly. My little brat was born to be beaten. The blood of a lowlife flows through her veins. Giving her a bite to eat is an act of mercy. In a few years, I'll sell that brat for a dowry. My daughter looks just like a tramp. That cursed, low-born child isn't worthy of love. While cursing Roma, Nicole would size me up with those crafty eyes. Every time I thought about how Nicole abused Roma, believing she was my biological daughter, I was filled with resentment. Eventually, I gave up on exposing the truth from back then. After that, Nicole even bought an old apartment of about 40 square meters near my villa. She would frequently come to visit Helen, occasionally bringing Roma along. When the 2 children turned 8, it was time for them to start primary school. I enrolled Helen in an international school and hired a private piano tutor to teach her at home. One day, Nicole came to my villa with 2 old hens and brought Roma along. As soon as she entered the door, Nicole called out to me, "Diana, I'm here to visit you. These are old hens from my mom's farm back in the countryside. I specifically brought 2 for you to try." I came downstairs to greet them, and saw Roma, such a small child at 8 years old, her height barely reaching 1 meter. Roma was dressed in dirty, torn clothes, wearing plastic sandals covered in yellow mud. Her left cheek was swollen, and there were bruises all over her body. An 8-year-old child. She hung her head low, barely able to speak a word. I asked the maid to get a pair of slippers. The maid looked at Roma's little dirty feet and couldn't help but frown. This child, her little feet are covered in mud. I'll go get a basin of water and wash her feet before she changes into slippers. The maid meant well. Unexpectedly, Nicole turned around, raised her large hand, and slapped Roma across the face 3 times. Smack, smack, smack. Roma was knocked to the ground, her face swollen and bruised, with blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. Nicole then lifted her leg and kicked Roma in the chest. "You worthless beggar. Filthy brat. You're so dirty. Bringing shame to me. I'll beat you to death." Seeing this, I grabbed Nicole's arm. "What are you doing? She's just a child. How can you beat her like that?" Nicole raised her head to look at me, her expression twisted between a smile and a sneer. Diana, don't stop me. This kid was born to be beaten. If I don't beat her for 3 days, she'll start causing trouble. The seed is bad. The blood is filthy. Nicole cursed viciously, her words particularly sharp. In Nicole's mind, Roma was my biological daughter. Every time she scolded or beat Roma, she mentioned either her breed or her bloodline. It was clear she was indirectly mocking me. I never understood why Nicole hated me so much. Hearing such cruel words from her, I hardened my expression, unwilling to interfere in her family's affairs. Just then, Helen had finished playing the piano. Helen ran to the doorway and gently helped Roma up. Godmother, why are you hitting Roma? Roma is such a good girl. Come on, let her come inside and play with me. As Helen spoke, she grabbed Roma's small hand. Her eyes filled with pity. The two girls were the same age, and children always had something to talk about when they were together. But Nicole grabbed Roma's hair, yanking her back and slapping her twice on the back of her head. You filthy brat. You think you're worthy of holding Helen's hand? Nicole was furious, her eyes blazing. She squatted down and spoke to Helen. Helen, you're a lady of great standing. Roma is nothing but a little beast. She's not worthy of playing with you. This beast was born to serve on her knees. Helen, make her kneel on the ground and act as your horse to ride. Helen was startled by Nicole's words, shaking her head in disbelief, her body retreating in fear. I pulled Helen behind me, glaring at Nicole. You can scold your own child, but not in front of Helen. Helen gets scared easily. You might frighten her. Nicole, I won't be keeping you here today. Helen has a ballet class this afternoon, and we need to leave soon. Upon hearing that, Nicole finally nodded slightly and put down the 2 old hens. She repeatedly reminded me, make sure to use these to make chicken soup for Helen. Helen is weak and needs lots of nourishment. Nicole said this as she led Roma out of the house, pulling Roma by her hair as they went, all the while cursing, you little bastard, worthless scum, disgraceful. Don't wander around in front of Helen again. How can you even compare to Helen? Helen is a celestial fairy, and you are just a maggot in the dirt. Hear me, you filthy little brat. Chapter 3. The past floated before my eyes as the lights in the hallway grew brighter. Nicole, eager to have Helen return to her rightful family, had requested an expedited paternity test. It cost over 10,000 yuan. In just half an hour, the results were ready. A healthcare worker approached us with the report in hand. Seeing this, Nicole immediately rushed forward and snatched it away. Her eyes were filled with smugness, and she said in a mocking tone, "Oh, the results are in. Diana, it's time for you to admit defeat. Helen, after all, is my biological daughter. Some people are only meant to give birth to lowlifes." Seeing Nicole's overly smug expression, an indescribable sense of anger and sadness rose in my heart. I asked myself why. I had known Nicole for so many years and had never done anything to wrong her. I truly didn't understand why Nicole hated me so much. At that moment, Nicole continued speaking with pride. When Luis's father died, he made it very clear, 80% of the company's shares would go to Helen, and as for the villa and the savings, they were also transferred to Helen's name after he died. Now that Helen is my biological daughter, all that money belongs to us. Nicole's eyes gleamed with calculation. Indeed, my husband's family was wealthy. They had been in business since my father-in-law's generation. My father-in-law was initially a university professor, but he later resigned to start a business in construction materials, which brought him great wealth. Luis inherited his father's business, and to this day, our family still works in the construction materials industry. My father-in-law was a very kind man. He only had one son, Luis. In his life, after I gave birth to Helen, he held her every day, unwilling to let go, wanting to give her the best of everything. A few years ago, my father-in-law passed away from cancer. At that time, my mother-in-law had also been gone for many years. It was my husband's own idea to tell my father-in-law that the inheritance should be directly given to Helen. Luis and I are very career-focused, and we would never live poorly. Besides, even if we earned mountains of gold and silver, wouldn't it all be left to our children in the end? It seems that Nicole had been coveting our family's wealth for quite some time. She had been calculating all of this silently for years. At that moment, I clenched my fists tightly, my nails nearly digging into my palms, yet I still tried my best to remain calm and composed. Nicole shook the paternity test report in front of me, as if flaunting her victory. I took a deep breath, snatched the report from her, and carefully read every word. Then, I raised an eyebrow and smiled. Nicole, it seems you haven't actually read this paternity test. Nicole immediately rolled her eyes dramatically. Is there even a need to read it? I remember very well that back when the two children. Nicole suddenly paused. Humph. Either way, Helen is my biological daughter. That can't be faked. As she spoke, Nicole reached out and snatched the report back. She slowly opened the report and read it word by word. Joe, Helen and Nicole's paternity test result excludes a biological relationship, not a biological mother-daughter relationship. Chapter 4. Nicole's face turned ashen in an instant. Her eyes widened as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. This is impossible. Impossible! Nicole screamed like she had lost her mind. I smiled, taking the report and reminding her. The genetic match is less than 99.6%. And you still dare say Helen is your child? Nicole, I think you've gone hysterical. Have you gone crazy because my Helen is now an excellent student? At that moment, Oliver also rushed to Nicole's side. He snatched the report, his fingers trembling as he flipped through the pages. Suddenly, Oliver lost it, punching and hitting Nicole. You damn woman. What the hell is going on? Didn't you say Helen was our biological child? Why doesn't the test result match? While beating Nicole, Oliver kept shouting filthy curses. God damn it. You stupid woman. You useless idiot. This paternity test cost over 10,000 yuan. And now this is what we get. Damn it! Nicole cried out in pain as Oliver beat her, screaming in desperation. No. This is impossible. Her voice trailed off, eventually turning into a helpless whimper. Suddenly, Nicole mustered all her strength and lunged at me, grabbing my collar. Diana, this report is fake. You must have bribed the hospital. It's impossible. Helen is clearly my biological daughter. Diana, you're nothing but a piece of trash for using such low tactics. I broke free from Nicole's grip. Nicole, are you out of your mind? Let me tell you, the paternity certificate is right here, and Helen is my biological daughter. From now on, go crazy all you want, but stop disturbing my family. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. As I spoke, I turned around and walked away with my husband and daughter. Ha! She thought she could take what's mine, as if she could ever be worthy. Chapter 5. After returning home, Helen was still shaken by today's events. Even Luis was full of questions. I knew Nicole well. We had shared a dorm room during college. She was always the type to stir up trouble for no reason, even with the paternity test results in front of her. I knew Nicole wouldn't let us off that easily. I immediately booked Helen a plane ticket abroad. I wanted her to take a trip to Europe before starting university. That evening, after his shower, Luis sat alone on the bed in our bedroom. He waved at me, worry etched on his face. Diana, what's the deal with your friend? Why would she suddenly say the hospital mixed up the babies all those years ago? The baby swapping incident had happened 18 years ago. I had kept it buried deep in my heart, never even telling Luis. That night, I told Luis everything about how Nicole had secretly swapped our babies after I gave birth 18 years ago. That night, after I gave birth, your mother fell ill. During the day, you took care of her while also looking after me. At night, you lay on the small hospital bed beside me, sleeping like a dead log. I don't know why, but that night my right eyelid kept twitching. When I went to the nursery, I found Nicole had swapped our babies. I immediately switched them back. After hearing everything, Luis patted his chest in shock. My God, Nicole's intentions were so vicious. Diana, why didn't you tell me all of this all these years? Luis continued. No wonder Nicole was always hitting and scolding her daughter. Poor Roma, what a tough life she's had. She wasn't even in school at 10 years old. And later, that incident happened. Over the years, Nicole had treated her daughter, Roma, like an animal. When Helen was 8, She went to an international primary school. But even when Roma turned 10, Nicole refused to send her to school. The community officer went to their home several times. Nicole stubbornly refused, making all sorts of excuses. Roma, that poor child, was so thin and weak, her large eyes always filled with fear. It wasn't until the local police officer got involved and firmly insisted that Nicole send her child to school. Roma could only attend an ordinary public elementary school. During the day, she went to classes, but at night she had to wash clothes and cook at home. I heard that during those years, Roma lived in the bathroom of her house. There was a folding iron bed placed behind the toilet. Only at night could Roma open up the folding bed and lie down on the hard surface to sleep. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, Oliver would come to use the bathroom and unbuckle his belt right in front of Roma. A few years later, Roma grew up into a young lady. One day, she was squatting at my doorstep, wiping her tears with her hand. I approached to ask her what was wrong, and Roma hugged my legs and burst into tears. It turned out that the previous night, Oliver had drunk too much, and when he went to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, he tried to take advantage of Roma. Even though Roma wasn't my biological daughter, and I had hated Nicole all these years, that time I truly couldn't hold back. I called Nicole over to my house and gave her a proper scolding. I told her that Roma was still just a child, and what Oliver did was a crime. If she really couldn't afford to raise this girl, our family could take care of 2 daughters. I was willing to take Roma as my goddaughter and let her live in our house from then on. But as soon as Nicole heard that I wanted to recognize Roma as my goddaughter, she refused. She kept saying, "Oh, Diana, how could you believe what that little wretch in our family says? All this talk about touching and harassment, it's all nonsense from that little wretch. Our Oliver is not like that." Nicole went on. "Who is Roma? She's just a slut, a worthless creature. Don't be fooled by her. She doesn't deserve to live in such a good house. Just look at her. With that pathetic look, her blood is filthy. How could she be worthy of being Helen's sister?" That day, Nicole dragged Roma away, forcefully pulling her back home. Since then, I haven't seen Roma again. I heard that Nicole sent Roma to the countryside. In the countryside, a young and beautiful girl like Roma attracted the unwanted attention of many rough men. Nicole even instructed those villagers to climb into Roma's bed, each time paying them a red bill. Later, another 2 years passed. It seemed like Roma fell ill, and Nicole sold her to a crippled old man in the village. That old man was a pervert who had tortured 3 wives to death. Last year, news came that Roma had died miserably in the countryside. Luis, how desperate must Roma have been to have such a mother? I choked on my words. Luis held my hand tightly, his eyes filled with anger. "Diana, Nicole and Oliver are both despicable people. Actually, there's something I've been hiding from you for many years." Chapter 6. "What is it?" I asked. Only then did Luis murmur, "Do you remember, back in the day, when you and Nicole both graduated from university and started as interns at my company? At that time, I had just taken over the company. It was small, and we saw each other every day. Actually, from the first time I saw you, I fell in love at first sight. I thought to myself, how can this girl be so fair-skinned? Her smile is so sweet. If I could marry such a beautiful girl, even if we did nothing else but look at her smile every day, I'd die happy." But who would have thought? During the time I was pursuing you, Nicole secretly came to see me once. What did she want? I asked eagerly. Luis looked a bit embarrassed and said, She arranged a meeting at a hotel in your name. She wore a black lace nightgown, trying to throw herself at me. I was so scared that I turned to run. But then, Nicole said a lot of bad things about you that day. She said that you were a mess in university, that you had dated more than 10 boyfriends, and that you had had 3 abortions, with her accompanying you to the hospital each time. She said you were not serious, and warned me to be careful not to be fooled by your looks. The more I listened, the angrier I became. It was Nicole herself who had the abortions. She was involved with Oliver back in high school. When she went to university, she was sneaking out every night. She was clearly trying to smear my reputation. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Pouting in frustration, Luis, on the other hand, wrapped his arm around my shoulder, trying his best to comfort me. I raised an eyebrow and glanced at Luis, then slowly asked, "Even after all that Nicole said about me, why did you still pursue me back then?" Luis grinned mischievously. "I didn't believe her. I knew in my heart who you really were, and I trusted what I saw with my own eyes. Besides, back then, I was head over heels for you. I was so captivated that even if you were really just after my money, I wouldn't have minded." It was late at night. The moonlight shone through the curtains, illuminating our faces. Fortunately, I married a dependable man, and so, the night passed without sleep. Chapter 7. Early the next morning, we bought a plane ticket for Helen. Luis has a distant cousin, a woman in her 40s who has always been single and has no children. She usually adores Helen. We arranged for Helen to go on a trip abroad with her cousin. Once the child was out of the way, Luis and I could take care of business back home. Who would have thought that just after Helen left, Nicole and her husband Oliver barged into our house in a whirlwind. "Diana, where's my daughter?" Nicole barged in, hands on her hips, full of fury. At that moment, my husband and I were having lunch. Luis frowned as soon as he saw Nicole and Oliver. I slammed my chopsticks on the table. "Nicole, are you out of your mind? The paternity test report is out. Helen is my biological daughter." But it seemed like Nicole didn't hear a word I said. Oh, Diana, still being stubborn, huh? You may not know what happened back then, but I know very well. Don't think hiding Helen is going to get you anywhere. Helen is my biological daughter, and that's an indisputable fact. Diana, I advise you to be sensible and pack your things. Get out of this house. This villa is going to be mine. Nicole spoke while dragging Oliver with her, both wearing dirty shoes covered in yellow mud. Wandering around my house, Oliver looked around and commanded, "This villa isn't bad, but the decor is a bit old-fashioned. When we take over, we'll knock down the maid's room on the first floor and turn it into a gym, and that big room upstairs will be for my mom." Luis and I exchanged a look full of disbelief and anger. Luis finally couldn't stand it any longer and got up, staring coldly at Nicole and Oliver. "Nicole, you two are going too far. We've already made it very clear about Helen, and the paternity report is right here. What more do you want? Don't think you can just barge into someone else's home and take whatever you want." Nicole remained unfazed, continuing to wander around the living room as if she already owned the place. "Diana, do you think you can keep anything like this? Let me tell you, don't think I don't know, you tampered with the paternity test. This villa is in Helen's name, isn't it? Since it's in my daughter's name, it naturally belongs to me, her mother. Diana, Luis, if you have any sense, you should pack up and get out." By this point, Oliver was sitting very comfortably on my sofa, smoking a cigarette, carelessly flicking ash all over the floor. He even picked up the remote control to turn on the TV, acting completely at home. I couldn't take it any longer and called security directly. In no time, the community security arrived. Seeing them, Nicole didn't back down. Instead, she became even more arrogant. "Oh, you called security? What? You want to kick us out? I'm telling you, Diana, today, whether you like it or not, we're coming in." I pointed directly at Nicole and told the security guards, "This is my house. They are trespassing." As I spoke, I had Luis go get the property deed. Luis and I have lived in this villa for 18 years. The security guards and gatekeepers know us well. You too. What exactly do you want here? This is private property. If you do not have a legal reason to enter, we have the right to call the police. Hearing that they might call the police, Nicole suddenly looked a bit flustered, but she still tried to act composed. "Call the police? Fine. Go ahead. I'd like to see if the police would be on your side or ours. Helen is my daughter, that's an indisputable fact." Even the security chief had never seen a woman as unreasonable as Nicole. In the end, they had no choice but to forcibly remove them. Several security guards stepped forward, lifted Nicole and Oliver, and dragged them out of my villa. After that, Nicole didn't come around to make trouble for several days. but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling growing inside me. Until one day, Luis called me from the office. Chapter 8. Diana. Bad news. Nicole's been spreading lies online. And now our company's stock is plummeting. I immediately opened my phone to check the internet, and found out that Nicole had started a live stream account. She was crying online, claiming that we had taken her child and wouldn't return her. Nicole sobbed dramatically, pleading her case online. My good friend wasn't decent even when we were in school. She always wanted to compete with me in everything. Later, she married a wealthy man. Even during pregnancy, she had to do it at the same time as me. 18 years ago, we both gave birth at the same hospital, but due to negligence, the hospital switched our babies. Now, my friend refuses to return my daughter to me. I've been separated from my own child for 18 years. My heart is breaking. Nicole portrayed herself in the live stream as a pitiful mother, someone who had been tirelessly searching for her biological child, only to be denied reunion in the end. Many viewers online began to sympathize and comment. Could it be that the hospital switching the babies was done on purpose? This is just too sad. That friend of yours doesn't sound decent. Could it be that her child isn't even her husband's? Maybe she swapped them on purpose. This so-called friend is just too despicable. The babies were switched, and now that the biological mother has come forward, the child should be returned to her rightful family, not allowing the child to recognize her real mother. That's just cruel. That vicious woman deserves to be cut to pieces. The comments online were overwhelmingly one-sided. Occasionally, there were a few more rational comments questioning what was really going on with the other woman. But whenever Nicole saw such comments, she would delete them immediately. Nicole portrayed herself as incredibly pitiful online, and in just a few days, she already had over 1 million followers. At the same time, Luis and I had our personal information exposed by the netizens. They found out about Luis's company and learned that he was the owner and major shareholder of the entire business. Now, in just a few days, the stock price of Luis's company had started fluctuating significantly. Because of this, Luis had lost 2 major deals. Luis spoke helplessly over the phone. Diana, what are we supposed to do now? Nicole and Oliver are spreading lies online. Just this morning, I lost 2 deals, amounting to over 3 million. Hearing this, I smiled slightly. Honey, don't worry. Let the dust settle first. Justice will be served in due time. The more arrogant Nicole is now, the harder she'll fall in the end. Chapter 9. After comforting Luis for a while, I hung up the phone. Then, I opened my phone and watched some of the videos Nicole had posted online. They were all completely twisted, accusing us of taking her child. 2 of these videos had gone viral, reaching millions of views. Seeing this, I secretly created a new account on my phone. Then I sent Nicole a private message. The message contained a link to a highly popular provincial TV mediation show. This show had very high ratings, and every guest who appeared would receive a payment of 10,000 yuan. As expected, when Nicole saw the private message, she took the bait. She immediately contacted the mediation show and began promoting her tragic story, hoping to use the media to get her child back. 3 days later, the show's producers reached out to Luis and me, asking if we would be willing to participate in the show's recording. I agreed without hesitation. On the day of the recording, Luis and I arrived at the TV station right on time. As soon as the recording began, Nicole fell to her knees in front of me in the studio, crying her eyes out, banging her head on the floor. Diana, I beg you, please give Helen back to me. Helen is my flesh and blood, the child I carried for 10 months. Even though the hospital made a mistake back then, both of our families were victims, but I've been separated from my biological daughter for 18 years. I'm begging you, give my child back to me. I had to admit, Nicole's acting was quite impressive. Her act of playing the victim moved both the guests and the audience to tears. The show had only been airing for less than 10 minutes, and many in the audience were already cursing me to no end. Some extreme fans even threw empty water bottles onto the stage. But at this moment, I wasn't angry at all. I simply spoke slowly, saying just one sentence. You say Helen is your daughter. Then where is my daughter? Nicole's body visibly tensed when she heard my words. At that moment, Oliver suddenly stood up. Oliver shouted at the top of his lungs. Roma had bad luck. She died in the countryside. Didn't you already know? At this point, one of the show's guests chimed in. That's right. Before the show, we went over their family situation. Their daughter Roma, who is your biological daughter, wasn't well from a young age. Due to her health, she dropped out of high school in her first year to return to the countryside to recover. But in the end, she still died there. At that moment, my expression remained unchanged. Holding the microphone, I stood up in front of everyone. Today, the first thing I want to do is not talk about whether Helen is Nicole's daughter. Instead, I want to introduce a new friend to the audience. As I spoke, I clapped my hands. Then, I turned towards the backstage and shouted, Roma, come out! Chapter 10. With my call, a girl in a white dress, with a thin, frail figure and haggard face, slowly walked out from the backstage. Her eyes were filled with rage, and her right leg was visibly crippled. Holding the microphone, I spoke slowly to everyone. This is Roma, the daughter who, according to Nicole, had died in the countryside. My voice was calm, though tears filled my eyes. Seeing Roma, both Nicole and Oliver were clearly caught off guard. Their faces instantly turned tense. At that moment, the audience erupted in an uproar. The audience's gaze shifted back and forth between Roma and me, as murmurs filled the air. Wasn't that girl named Roma supposed to be dead? Why is she on stage? That young girl doesn't look sick. She looks like she's been abused. Look at her right leg. It seems like it was crippled by violence. Why is she so skinny? Look at her arms. It looks like there are bruises on them. At this moment, Roma stood under the spotlight. Her fists were clenched tightly, her nails nearly digging into her flesh. I walked over to Roma and handed her the microphone. Roma took the microphone and spoke slowly and deliberately. Hello, everyone. I am Roma. I am not sick. Here today, I want to formally report this. Nicole and Oliver have abused their own daughter, trafficked women, and used their daughter for illegal profit. It was them. They were the ones who married me off to a perverted old bachelor in the village, just to get 5,000 yuan. My leg was broken while I was trying to escape from that pervert. Today, we are here to expose the true, despicable nature of this couple. Nicole and Oliver are the most irresponsible, cruel, and heartless parents in this world. That's right. Roma was not dead. I had saved her. Back when Nicole sent Roma to the countryside, I knew that the child would suffer there. Even though Roma was not my biological daughter, I couldn't bear to see a young girl destroyed during what should have been the prime of her life. I secretly contacted a security company and had them go to the village to rescue Roma. But by the time my team found Roma, her leg had already been broken, and she was thrown into a pigsty, left with the pigs, skeletal and in a condition worse than death. I paid that old pervert 100,000 yuan out of my own pocket to bring Roma back. I also made sure that the old pervert spread the word that Roma was dead. After all, only a dead person could not be further exploited by Nicole and Oliver. As the audience saw Roma's pitiful condition and listened to her testimony, anger boiled among everyone. Yet, even then, Nicole was still stubbornly unrepentant. She pointed at Roma, screaming hysterically, "What does your suffering have to do with me? Blame it on not being my biological child. Blame it on being Diana's bastard." Nicole roared furiously. "Diana, even if you've found Roma, what can you do about it? It doesn't change the fact that Helen is my biological daughter. Diana, let me tell you something. 18 years ago, right when the two children were born, I switched our daughters. All these years, the one I have abused and mistreated has always been your child. Whenever I thought about Roma being your daughter, I wanted to torture her. I wished she would just die." As Nicole spoke, she even tilted her head back and laughed maniacally. "Diana, does it hurt now? Helen, whom you painstakingly raised for 18 years, is my child, and your daughter has been tormented by me every day. Do you know what kind of life she had in the countryside? It was worse than that of pigs and dogs. Ha 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 ha. Diana, you can't beat me. You will never beat me." At this moment, I looked at Nicole, her face twisted with malice. I walked slowly up to her, speaking calmly. "Nicole, for so many years, I've always wanted to ask you. What did I ever do to make you hate me this much? Nicole stared at me intensely, as if she wanted to devour me alive. Her emotions shifted from agitation to frenzy, and she finally roared in a fit of madness. You ask me why I hate you? Ha ha ha. I just hate you, Diana. We were both classmates in college. We both came from the countryside. Clearly, we were the same, so why should you have a better life than me? Why? When we were in school, did all the boys like you? They all sent you love letters, and even the counselor favored you. Scholarships, grants, they all went to you. And I had to eat instant noodles every day and work part-time everywhere. Later, after we graduated and joined the same company as interns, you were able to marry the boss and live the life of a rich wife. But what about me? I worked tirelessly, putting in my all at the company for years. And then a few years ago, your husband fired me. Why? Why should it be like this? I just hate you, Diana. I will never let you have a better life than me. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. It turned out, it was all just because of jealousy. I stood in front of Nicole and spoke indifferently. I have a better life than you. Not because I'm prettier than you or because you have bad luck. It's because I am capable, and I work hard enough. We may both come from the countryside. But when we were in school, you spent every day busying yourself with Oliver. Meanwhile, I got up every morning at 4 a.m., went to the library at 5 a.m. to study. The scholarships, the grants, they were all earned by me. As for why Luis chose me, it wasn't for my looks but for my character. Nicole, do you have any admirable qualities? Is there anything about you worth liking? And you know very well why my husband fired you 3 years ago. You tried to cut corners and falsified accounts. You embezzled over 200,000 yuan from the company. Luis was the one who covered for that loss. Nicole, the suffering you have experienced is what you deserve. Everything you have faced is of your own doing. At that, I turned my head slightly toward the host. Host. Earlier I provided a video to the show. Now, you may play it. Chapter 11. Upon hearing my words, the host immediately signaled for the staff to play the video. In just a moment, the large screen at the TV station began showing a piece of surveillance footage. This video was from 18 years ago, the very night when Nicole and I gave birth. It showed Nicole sneaking into the nursery, switching the babies. After that footage, there was another video recorded on my phone. In my video, I could be seen walking into the nursery after Nicole left, switching the babies back to their original places. Following that was the paternity test certificate for me and my daughter Helen. As everything played on the screen, Nicole's face turned ashen. She widened her eyes, looking at me in disbelief. You, how could you? Her words became fragmented, her voice trembling uncontrollably. I looked at her coldly and continued. Did you think what you did was flawless and that no one would ever find out the truth? You were wrong. From the moment you switched the babies, I knew everything. This can't be. Nicole's voice rose, her face full of shock. I said, so, Nicole, now you know. Helen has always been my biological daughter, and your child, your daughter, is Roma. All these years, the one you and Oliver abused, tormented, and sold was always your own daughter. Nicole, this is your karma. Nicole's body began to tremble, and she seemed like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. At that moment, Oliver realized what was happening too. His eyes instantly turned bloodshot, and his emotions became frenzied. Like a madman, Oliver rushed toward Nicole, kicking and punching her. You filthy woman! Didn't you say that Roma was Diana's kid? That Helen was ours? You bitch. This is all your fault. It's all because of you. Damn it. I'm gonna kill you today. Kill you! Oliver's fists rained down on Nicole, who curled up on the floor, covering her head with her hands, screaming in agony. Bruises and blood quickly covered her face and body. The surrounding staff and audience were stunned by the scene. The host rushed forward to try to stop Oliver, but he was in a state of madness, unable to hear anyone. As I watched everything unfold before me, I felt no sympathy at all. After a while, several security guards finally rushed forward, pinning Oliver to the ground. He continued to struggle and roar, but it was futile. Nicole lay on the ground, gasping for air. At that moment, the police cars had already arrived at the TV station's entrance. Before today's recording, I had already called the police in advance. Before the police officers took Nicole and Oliver away, I walked up to Nicole and spoke one final sentence. Nicole, for daring to steal my daughter. All of this today is what you deserve. You deserve nothing less. After speaking, I turned away coldly, not giving Nicole another glance. Chapter 12. The police escorted Nicole and Oliver into the police car, both of them stumbling as they were taken away, leaving behind a scene of chaos and murmurs from the audience. After the recording at the TV station, it was Roma, their own biological daughter, who took Nicole and Oliver to court. Roma collected evidence, along with the countless scars on her body. All of this served as the best proof of Nicole and Oliver's abuse. Afterward, Nicole and Oliver were sentenced to 3 years in prison for child abuse. Oliver, who had a violent nature, got into fights in prison as well. In the end, he was disciplined by a prison leader, and less than half a year later, he died in custody. As for Nicole, since being locked up, she had been constantly shouting about wanting to see Roma, but Roma never agreed to see her. Roma only left Nicole a letter, with 3 words written in red ink, "You deserve it." Once the case was over, I found Roma in private and apologized to her. Roma, I'm so sorry. If I had revealed the truth earlier, you wouldn't have had to suffer all these years. When Roma heard my words, she just shook her head expressionlessly. No, even if Nicole and Oliver knew I was their biological child, they wouldn't have treated me well. They wanted Helen as their daughter not because they loved her, but only for your family's wealth. I lived with them for over 10 years, I know them well. Beasts have no heart. I gave Roma a bank card with over 800,000 yuan on it, as compensation for what she had endured all these years. But Roma returned the card to me. Later, she changed her name and left the city alone. From that moment on, I never saw her again. Nicole, after being imprisoned, lost her mind in the 7th month. She held a small pillow in her arms every day, rocking it back and forth. My daughter, my good daughter. Roma, mommy won't switch you anymore. Roma, come, mommy will feed you. Roma, Roma. Meanwhile, Luis, Helen, and I were already on a plane. Helen was about to start school soon. The 3 of us sat on the plane, looking out at the azure sky, dreaming of a beautiful future.